If you feel confused about ninth grade math, this video is here to help you. In this video, we're gonna talk about all you need to know for Unit 1 of ninth grade math. So, first thing we're gonna explore through this video is the sign rules. As you know, you guys may know already, there is the addition rule. I don't know if I'm spelling addition right. Addition rule for signs. And there is also multiplication rules and division. So for the addition rules, all you need to know is that when you have two signs that are the same and you're adding them, so for instance, if you have a negative plus a negative sign, you're gonna keep the signs and you're just gonna add the two numbers. So let's say you add -7 plus, no, let's just do it -7. This is gonna equal -4 or -14, since you keep the sign, which is negative here, and you just add them, the two numbers. And when you have two signs that are not the same, let's say for instance you have a plus and a negative, but you're adding these two numbers, you're gonna keep the sign of the bigger number, and you're gonna subtract these two numbers. So let's say for instance you add the same thing, but you add -7 plus 9. So you're gonna keep the sign of the biggest number, so you're gonna do plus, and you're gonna subtract these two numbers, so it's gonna be 2. So let's say it was the opposite. It was 7 minus 9. Well, you're probably saying, oh, that's easy, that's equal to, but no. As we said, we're gonna subtract these two numbers, and we're gonna keep the sign of the biggest one. So it's gonna be -2. So this is it for the this is basically all you need to know for the addition rules with different signs. Now we're going to explore the multiplication rules. Multiplication rules with signs. Okay, so all you need to know for this section, you need to know that a negative times a negative, so it's going to equal positive. Or and a positive times a positive is always going to equal positive. So you can already see a pattern here. When you multiply two signs that are the same, so when you multiply negative by negative or positive by positive, they're always going to equal plus. They're always going to be positive. But if you do the opposite, you multiply two different signs, such as negative times a positive, it's always going to equal negative no matter what. So let's do a example. Let's say you add -9 times -1. So as we said, when they are the two same signs, you just do positive, right? So this is a positive, and you multiply the two numbers, which is gonna be 9. And if it was the opposite, something different, such as like -9 times 1, as we said, when you multiply two different sides, you just it's always gonna be equal negative. So it's gonna be negative, and you just do 9 times 1, which is gonna be 9. So now let's do some practice together. Let's do some practice problem. So we're gonna combine the two top equivalent, which is the addition rule rules, and multiplication rules. Multiplication rules with sign. So let me give you, I'm just gonna write some practice problem, and we're gonna do it together. So let's do -7 plus 2 equal So we're gonna do this addition rule first. So what did we learn? We learned that when we're adding two numbers that have different signs, we keep the sign with the biggest number that is in front of the biggest number, which is in this case 7. So we're gonna do negative, and we subtract these two numbers. So it's gonna be negative. What's 7 plus minus 2? It's gonna be 5, right? So this is the answer for the first one. So the second one, it's gonna be the same deal. So we keep the sign of in front of the biggest number, which is gonna be a negative, and we subtract these two numbers. So we're gonna do 9 minus 5, which is gonna equal to what? Which is gonna equal to 4. This is the result for the second one. And this one, remember, we said when they have the same, when we're adding two numbers with the same sign, we just keep the sign no matter what, and we just add these two numbers no matter what. So it's gonna be -6, -2, which is gonna just be 6 plus 2, and we keep the negative sign, which is gonna equal -8. Perfect. And this same deal, we said when we're adding two numbers with different signs, we're gonna keep the sign of the biggest, which is in this case the sign of 7, which is positive, right? And we're gonna just subtract them. So it's gonna be 7 minus 3, so it's gonna be 4. Perfect. Now let's go on the addition multiplication rules. So for multiplication, we said when you're multiplying two of the same signs, it's gonna always equal positive, and when you're multiplying two of the different signs, it's always gonna equal a negative. So let's do some practice problem together. So -7 times -2, and 7 times let's do 1. Okay, 8 times -2. Let's do -1 times 9. Perfect. So these two are the same, have the same sign. So it's gonna be positive, and we're just gonna multiply the two numbers. 7 times 2, 14. That's it. 7 times 1, we all know that they have the same sign. Even if it's invisible, there's a positive sign here. So 7 times 1 is just gonna be 7. And here, two different signs, so it's always gonna be negative, right? So just do negative, and then you multiply the two numbers, which is gonna equal to -16. And same thing here, two different signs, so -1 times 9, it's gonna be equal to -9. Just keep the sign and multiply the numbers. Okay. So the second thing we're gonna talk about today is the basic of fractions. So we're just gonna talk about simplifying fraction, simplifying, adding, and multiplying. And we can also do a little of fraction divisions. Okay. So let me erase it. Never mind. So let's go for simplifying fraction first. So let's say you had a fraction such as 4/8. So the principle of simplifying fraction is to divide both the numerator, which is the one on the top, and the denominator, which is the one on the bottom, by the same amount. So for this specific fraction, you can divide both the top and the bottom by 4, right? So you can do divided by 4. So if you have 4 divided by 4, this is going to equal 1. And 4 divided by 8 is going to equal 2. So the simplified form of this fraction is this. So this is a basic. But sometimes if you have like the large numbers, it can become really tedious and you have to go at multiples. So let's just say you had like something like 16 over 32, right? So now you don't necessarily know what will simplify this to its fullest, right? So you could do, let's just start with 2, right? So you divide by 2, both by 2. So this is going to equal to 8. This is going to equal to 16, right? And you can keep going like that, keep going, and you can just the same, repeat again. You can do 2, which is 4, which is 8, and just keep going, which is just going to equal this if you keep going. So this is the basic of simplifying fractions. So now let's do adding fraction. So the easiest form you can add a fraction is when they have the same thing at the bottom, the same denominator. So let's just say you want to add these two fractions, 1/2 plus 1/2. Since they have the same denominator, since they have 2 at the bottom, they both have 2. You're just gonna do this. Just gonna keep the same at the bottom and add the one at the top. So you're just gonna add 1 plus 1. And it's gonna go 2, and 2 divided by 2 just no 1. So think of it like this: if you had half of a pie and you added another half of a pie, what would you have? You would have a full pie. So this is why it's equal to 1. But when it gets tricky, it's when they have a different denominator. Let's just say they have 1/3 plus 1/2. Now, there's different way to approach this, but what I like to do is to do the butterfly method, which is what I'm going to show you in a second. So the butterfly method consists of multiplying the bottom, right? So you do a circle here. So it's going to equal 3 times 2, which is going to be 6, right? Then you multiply this by this, which is 2 times 1, which is going to equal 2. And you multiply this by this. And 3 times 1, and you add this, plus 3, right? So this, the reason I call it the butterfly method is because it kind of looks like a butterfly from my perspective. I don't know about you guys, but this is the basics. So you're just gonna add the number at the top like always. So 2 plus 1, 2 plus 3, I mean, it is equal to 5, and you just keep the same at the bottom. So this is the final answer. So this is kind of the basic of adding two fractions, but there is also another thing that you can do with fraction is when you're adding a whole number to a fraction. Let's just say you're adding a 6 to, let's just say 1/2 plus 1/2. So now just basically gonna be the butterfly method, but it's gonna be way simpler. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna multiply 6 times 2, which is gonna equal to 12, right? And you're just gonna add it to the 1, to this one. You're just gonna keep the 1 there and you add it, and the bottom is still gonna be the same. So this is just gonna equal 13/2. And it would be exactly the same if I was to do 6 minus 1/2. I would just multiply 6 times 2, which will be equal to 12, and I'll just keep the subtract sign here, just minus 1/2, which is 11/2. So this is the basic. Now we're gonna do adding and dividing fractions. So when you're multiplying fractions, this is from my experience one of the easiest thing you can do apart from adding two fractions with the same denominator, right? So let's just say you're multiplying 1/2 times 1/2 to keep it simple. So you're just gonna multiply the bottom, and you're just gonna multiply the top. That's it. So you're gonna do 1 times 1 over 2 times 2, which is just gonna equal 1 over 4. That's it. Same thing if you add, let's do something more complex. 3/2 times 1/4, right? You're just gonna multiply 3 times 1 and 2 times 4, which is gonna equal 8 and 3, right? This is it. This is your final answer. This is it. So let's do division now. This is kind of the hardest one from my experience, I'd say. So let's say you add, let's just start with 1/2 again. 1/2, you divide that by 1/2 again. So the principle for this is you're just gonna do 1/2, and you're gonna take the numerator, right, 1/2 here, and you're gonna multiply it by the reciprocal, I think, the inverse of the bottom one. I don't know how to say the reciprocal. I don't know. You guys gonna tell me in the comments. So you're just gonna multiply the inverse of 1/2, right? So which is gonna equal, you just flip it, the top and the bottom is gonna be 2 over 1. So the 1, you don't even have to write it. So you're just gonna do the simple multiplication now. So it's just gonna be 2 times 1, which is gonna equal 2, and 2 times 1, which is 2, which is equal to 1. So that's it. So if you even think of it logically, if you add 1/2 divided by 1/2, it would give you 1, which is the answer we got here. So this is it for the multiplication and the division of fractions. Now, let's engage in some things that are more complex and more high school level, right? Let's solve simple system equations with one variable. So one variable, which is gonna be x, we're gonna use in this case, right? So let's say you had a pretty basic equation, such as x plus 3 equal, I don't know, 7, right? So your goal in solving every equation is always gonna be to isolate the variable, which is gonna be x in this case, right? Just remember, the variable is the thing you don't know what it is, just like something they put in the equation, not a number, no nothing, just a symbol. So in this case, to solve for x here, to isolate x, you're gonna have to subtract 3 from both sides, which is the opposite of this, right? You're just gonna subtract this from both sides. So it's gonna be -3, -3, which is gonna equal, remember our sign rules and at the beginning, so it's gonna be 7 minus 3. So as the sign rule said, different signs, you're just gonna keep the bigger sign and subtract these two numbers. So the sign with the biggest number is positive in this case, which is which is in front of the 7, and you're just gonna do 7 minus 3. It's gonna be 4. Simple. So this is simple. So now let's do something more complex, but still basic. So let's say we have almost the same thing. You say you have 3 times x and equals, let's do 12. So in this type of situation, these type of equation, you're always gonna divide both sides by the thing x is both multiplied by. So in this case, you're just gonna divide both sides by 3. It's gonna be 3 divided by 3 divided by 3. So x is gonna equal, so 12 divided by 3 is gonna equal 4. Same thing. X equal 4 again, right? And something you might notice here is that when we're solving for equations with like one variable, we always try to isolate x by doing the opposite operation on both sides for the number that's on x's side. So like for here, you're adding 3 plus you're adding x plus 3 in this case. To get x by itself, you needed to do subtraction now, so you're just gonna subtract 3 from both sides. Same thing here, multiplying 3 by x, you just divide both sides by 3. You just do the opposite, right? So let's mix it up now. Let's do a mix of 3x plus let's say plus 8 equal 1. So now we gotta be careful, right? Remember our rules from the beginning, or addition rules from the beginning. So in this case, we're just gonna do the subtraction first, right? PEMDAS. So minus -8 from both sides, which is gonna be 3x equals 1 minus 8, which is gonna equal 2. What? Now, remember what we said, 2 different signs. Keep the sign in front of the biggest number. In this case, which is gonna be negative, and you subtract the two numbers, which is gonna be equal to -7. And then this is gonna give you that, right? This is gonna give you 3x equals -7. Now we just keep the sign and just divide by 3 from both sides, like we did here, right? So you just divide by 3, which is gonna equal x equals -7/3. So now this can be simplified. Just gonna have to leave it like that, and this is gonna become more common as you go through high school math. Not every answer you're gonna find is gonna equal to a whole number or like something real simplified. Sometimes you can have fractions, etc. Now you gotta get more familiar with it. So this is all you need to know to solve basic algebraic equation. And now that the video is coming to an end, we're just gonna do a few practice problems to call it a day. So let's do something like -7 times -3 and 3x plus 4 equals -2. And let's do a fraction, okay? 1/4 times 1/2 divided by 1/2 equals. All right. So now the first one. Remember PEMDAS. We have to do multiplication first. So when we're multiplying, let's say we're multiplying two numbers with the same sign, what do we do? If you guys recall, when the signs are the same, it's just gonna become positive, and we're just gonna multiply the numbers. So in this case, we're just gonna keep the 3 here, and we're gonna multiply 7 times 3, which is gonna equal if I'm not mistaken, 21, right? Then since the signs are the same, the signs are gonna become positive now. It's gonna be plus 21, which is gonna equal to basic addition rules here, something you probably learned in elementary school, which is gonna be like 3 plus 24, right? Okay, now let's solve this equation. So remember what we said, we always trying to isolate x. So in this case, to isolate x, we first need to subtract 4 from both sides. So now let's do this. So -4 minus 4 So it's gonna equal, it's gonna become 3x equals -2, -4. Now this is getting tricky, right? Remember what we said about the addition rules now. It's when we have two numbers with the same sign, we keep the sign and we just add the two numbers when they have the same sign. So in this case, they have the same sign, same negative. This 2 has a negative sign, 4 has a negative sign. You just keep the negative and you add the two numbers, which is going to go to -6. And finally, we're just going to divide both sides by 3, which is divide. And now it's one of our rule again. When it's the same as multiplication for division. So when you're dividing a negative by a positive, which is two different signs, it's always gonna equal to a negative, right? It's gonna equal to negative, and you just do the division now. Everyone knows 6 divided by 3 equals 2, right? -2. So this is the final answer. So now let's do the fraction one. So you have 1/4 times 1/2 divided by 1/2. So first thing you need to do, let's do the division first, right? Start from the left, go to the right. So let's do the division first. So remember our rule. When you're dividing two numbers, you take the numerator and you multiply it by the inverse of the denominator. So it's just gonna equal 2, right? So we did that before. So it's just gonna equal 2 times 1, which is gonna be 2 over 2, which is just gonna equal 1. And you're just gonna do, which is gonna become now 1/4. Since this is gonna become 1, we're just gonna multiply it by 1, and 1 times 1 equal 1 over 4. And that's it. That's it for today. So you guys, if you need some more practice, just comment for more practice, and I'll give you some more practice, and I can give you update, and I can keep you guys updated for new video I'm gonna post. Don't forget to like and follow. I don't know how to do the follow sign, my bad guys. So see you for another